I fucking hate roguelikes, but for some reason I just can't stop playing them. These kinds of games are very well known for absolutely kicking your ass and being very time consuming. I already have over 1050 hours in The Binding of Isaac, for example, even though that game is making me rage quit constantly. That's like over a month of time I spent sitting in my nerd cave to learn all these attack patterns of the bosses and the functions of all the items. While other people wasted their time with crap like sports, studying, or I don't know, making money. Another roguelike game that also managed to suck me into an abusive relationship is the game Enter the Gungeon. A charming, humorous little indie title with the main focus on fast, chaotic top-down action with a huge selection of different guns and items. I am still not 100% done with this game, but I think I've seen enough to provide you with my thoughts on it and to help you decide whether a trip down the Gungeon is something for you or not. So yeah, grab your starting pistol and let's enter the Gungeon. So before we get into it, let's quickly get up to date on what a game needs to have to be considered a roguelike. Basically it comes down to two very essential aspects. On one hand, it needs to have permadeath, which means that you will lose all of your progress and have to start all the way back from the beginning when you die. Which is the key factor of why these games can be so frustrating sometimes. On the other hand though, it also needs to ensure that every run feels different from the last. In terms of map layout, different routes for the player to take, the variety of different abilities or items the player could obtain in a run, and varying boss encounters. Just to name a few. In terms of these two essential factors, Enter the Gungeon is an absolute poster child for a roguelike. Because it absolutely nails these aspects, and it also manages to do that with a lot of charm. But yeah, don't let that cute art style fool you. This game really doesn't like you, and it wants you to know that. Just to get it over with, the story in this game is in its core everything that the story in a roguelike game really needs to be. It is very subtle, barely even present, and can be summed up in just one sentence. You play as a so-called Gungeoneer, who wants to find the gun that can kill the past, to travel back in time to smooth out his or her own personal failures. Yeah, pretty basic stuff, but hey, you don't really need more explanation. I mean, I'm sure we can all relate. You remember that one time you spent a shit ton of money on Overwatch loot boxes, or that one time you bought Fallout 76?
Oi. Acabou? Não.
This is your chance to make it all good again and become a happy person again. So swing your pixelated ass down there and get that gun. Another common trend for indie games, and especially roguelikes, that Enter the Gungeon follows very faithfully is the use of a retro-style graphics engine. A lot of indie games try to look like they came out before I was born, and a lot of people are starting to get sick of this old school pixelated art style. To me personally, this is no problem at all. Many indie game developers just don't have the resources to recreate the looks of a AAA game, and they don't need to. Modern graphics will all be outdated at some point, but a more restricted art style that does not bother to look as realistic as possible will age a lot slower. It will also always hit the soft spot of certain gamers, because many of us have fond memories of old pixelated games we used to play in our childhood. The game's art style and gameplay really remind me of the time when I was like 10 years old and used the computer of my parents to play shitty browser games. So to me the art style is very fitting. But we are not here to talk about graphics, we are here to talk about the game itself. So let's do it! Well, if you have ever played The Binding of Isaac, you will feel right at home. You will start at the top of the Gungeon, and you have to fight yourself from floor to floor until you encounter the final boss. Every floor has a shop, 2 treasure rooms and a boss room for you to find. Before you can go on to the next floor, or in this case chamber, you must fight the boss of the current floor. To help you on your journey, the game provides you with 2 chests each floor, which you will find inside the treasure rooms. To open these chests, you will need a key, because of course you do. These chests can contain guns, items or other random junk. They also have a ranking system, which makes it easier for you to decide whether or not you want to spend a key. You can either get keys after clearing a room, or you can buy them in the shop, if RNG is not on your side. There are also these key enemies who drop a key when killed, but they constantly run away from you and disappear after a while, which can bring you into some very sticky situations if you are very desperate for a key.
I am going to give you a hint as to where I've hidden the key, so listen carefully. The hint is this. It's right before your eyes.
If you come across a brown chest, it probably doesn't contain anything groundbreaking. A green or blue chest might have something that's very useful for your run, and if you come across a red or a black chest and you have no key, you better do everything you can to open this sucker, because these chests usually contain the real heavy hitters. There are also flashy looking synergy chests, which are a roll of the dice. If you open them and they become blue, you will get a gun or an item that synergizes with something you already have in your inventory. But if it becomes red, you will just get random crap. There are also rainbow chests, which contain a lot of stuff from all the different chest tiers combined. These things are very rare though. If you have really bad luck though, you will encounter a chest that is connected to a fuse. That means that the chest is about to blow up, and if you don't have a key at this exact moment, the chest will explode and you won't get jack shit. You can also break chests yourself, but most of the time you will just get useless junk from that. So yeah, use your keys. There are also mimic chests, which will attack you if you try to open them or shoot them with your gun. At the beginning, I hated these things, but now I actually feel happy to see them. Because if you kill them, you will get the contents of the chest for free, without having to use a key. That rhymes. They don't show up too often, but often enough to keep you paranoid. Even to a point where you will start to shoot every chest before you open it, to see if it's a mimic. Another way to gain weapons is by buying them in the shop or by defeating bosses. If you don't pick up a weapon during an entire floor, you will get a guaranteed weapon after the boss fight. So it makes sense to wait with the opening of chests until you have beaten the boss if you want to have more guns rather than more items. During every floor, you will encounter a lot of different enemies that vary drastically in terms of size, attack patterns and HP. They also all look very distinct from each other, and their attacks fit them all well. There are bullets who have guns, shotgun shells who have shotguns, bullets with bandanas who shoot machine pistols, rifle rounds who have sniper rifles, and yeah, I think you get the idea by now. There are also spiders who shoot webs, totems who have different attack patterns depending on the number of levels they have left, little guys that hang back to buff the others, and even little poop piles that basically have the tiny planet item from Binding of Isaac. Some of the most annoying enemies of the game in my opinion are definitely these lead maidens, who fire needles all over the place, which will home into you after hitting a wall. There are also these spirit panthers, who can create copies of themselves, and these giant golden skeletons, who spray a ton of bullets all over the place and need to be double tapped. Every room can also have multiple waves, meaning that once you killed all enemies in a room, it is not necessarily over. And yeah, some rooms do overstay their welcome a bit, to be honest. The drop rate for pickups in this game is also very low, so you really need to play carefully. You can consider yourself lucky if you get one key during an entire floor, and health pickups are also not that common. Occasionally you will get a half heart after clearing a room. Or you will encounter these red box enemies that function exactly like the key enemies, only that they give you ammo or armor instead of keys. Yeah, so all I can say is save your money and your HP, because you will need to rely on the shop a fair bit when it comes to things like health or keys. You can even save spare red hearts for later and withdraw them from these blood banks. Cause this is not the kind of game where you can just leave everything on the ground to collect it after you are done with the floor, that's for sure. If you leave a room, everything you've left on the ground will be gone most of the time, because the Gungeon rat will take it, and it will even leave you a note to laugh in your face. Yeah, what an asshole.
Right, here we go, we're gonna just steal a couple of things.
Excuse me, can I help you?
Starting with common office objects.
Hey, that's my stuff.
Such as staplers and pins.
I find this kind of annoying, but I also can appreciate it in some way. Because in Isaac I had plenty of moments where I left stuff on the ground for me to collect later on, only to then go straight to the next floor after beating the boss and then realizing I forgot to pick it up. And yeah, of course this is my fault and not the game's fault, but it is still frustrating. In Enter the Gungeon though, this cannot happen, because you either pick stuff up or it's gone, and this prevents a lot of micromanaging. After almost every room you clear, you will get a few casings, which function as the game's currency. These will automatically be collected, so the dirty little rat can take them away from you. These casings can be spent in the shop on things like health, armor, ammo and even entirely new guns and items. Sometimes there are also special NPCs who can offer you other kinds of trades.
Welcome!
There are also these little green containers sometimes, which are called gun munchers. If you have a few shitty guns in your inventory, you can feed 2 of them to this thing and it will spit out a new gun that is hopefully better than the 2 guns you just threw away. It is a very nice way to make use of your useless guns, but sadly you can only use every gun muncher once. There are also a few items which give you the ability to steal stuff from the shop, which sounds pretty OP, but it comes with a fair bit of nerfs. If you steal too much, the shopkeeper will catch you and close the shop for the rest of the run. Every time you steal something, you will also gain Curse, which is a stat that increases the chance of encountering these glowing red enemies called jammed enemies. Jammed enemies do a full heart of damage when they hit you and they also have a lot more HP than regular enemies. However, they do drop more casings when killed, which helps your economy. It is a decision that everyone has to make for themselves if you want to steal stuff or not. I personally really like stealing stuff, because a bit of curse is not the end of the world and you also don't get the opportunity to steal very often, so you better make use of it. Especially because the shopkeeper is a grumpy old boomer. It is strictly forbidden to shoot in the shop and if you do so, the shopkeeper will first warn you to stop. If you then continue on, at some point he will close the store entirely. Apparently this guy really does not like it when people shoot guns in his store. What a crybaby. Greed allows me to place bombs in his shop. Movement is a very important aspect in this game, because it is very consistent with having a lot of enemy projectiles on screen. To prevent yourself from getting hit, you have a dodge roll. And the fact that the studio of this game is even called dodge roll should make it clear to you that you will have to use this ability a fair bit. There are attacks that you can easily weave through, but also others which require you to dodge roll to avoid being hit. In case you get into a really sticky situation, you can always use a blank. These will erase almost every projectile that is currently on screen. You get 2 blanks at the beginning of each floor and they can also be bought at the store. You also need them to open up secret rooms, because if you shoot a wall with a weapon that does not have infinite ammo and it will start to crack, the secret room will open if you use a blank. These can contain all sorts of stuff and they can really turn a run around, so they are definitely worth looking for. A good way to find cover is flipping tables. Every table in this game can be flipped to serve as a temporary protection from enemy projectiles. They will break after a few shots, but they do help. I really like this feature, especially because you can find items that give you table effects, like rocket tables or shotgun tables. To test your understanding of the movement mechanics, you will come across rooms that require you to do platforming. These can get very sadistic and I lost count of the amount of times one of these rooms almost drained my entire HP. But hey, you don't have to do them ever again during a floor. Many rooms unlock teleportation points after clearing them, which allow you to teleport your way across the map. Gone are the days of endless backtracking because you found another dead end. Just whip out that teleporter and you are back on track. This really helps the pacing of this game, because it has very widespread floors, and your average runtime would break through the roof without the teleporter. The game really tries not to waste my time, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
When it comes to the boss fights, each floor has 3 potential bosses you will face up against. They all vary in difficulty, but none of them are an absolute cakewalk. This game really rewards you for learning the attack patterns of the bosses and developing a strategy for dealing with them. This is really important, because if you beat a boss flawlessly, you will get a master round for the floor, which will give you an additional heart container. So yeah, go save up your blanks for that boss fight, pal, cause you will need them. I already told you that health pickups and especially HP upgrades are not that common, so these master rounds are very helpful. I am really split on this mechanic, because on one hand it really motivates you to give your very best during every boss fight and to use your blanks wisely. But on the other hand, it has so much potential to frustrate you, because it is very upsetting when you take a hit during the last second of a boss fight and then use your master round because of that. The hardest regular bosses in this game to me are the ones you will face in the Black Powder Mine, which is the 3rd floor, and the Hollow, which is the 4th floor. Especially the Mind Flayer, which you will encounter in the mines, and the Wallmonger in the Hollow. These 2 bosses just give you no chance for the master round, and if you are one of those people that manage to beat these guys flawlessly without super OP weapons, then let me ask you one thing. How do you even manage to walk with those huge balls of steel? The Forge, which is the 5th floor, always has the same boss fight against the High Dragon. A huge ass dragon that has Uzis, RPGs and daggers that act as turrets. This all sounds very intimidating, but I actually find this boss very fair and understandable. Especially when you consider that it is basically the final boss fight. Its attacks are all very straightforward and after a couple of tries it will slowly start to click. There are also a few bosses that I really like to see. The Gorgon for example. A mermaid equipped with 2 Uzis, which seems like the cooler sister of Ariel. It is one of the boss fights in this game that hits the right spot between challenging and fair. Whenever I get hit in this fight, I can always tell why and what I could have done to prevent it. Which is really not the case for some of these later bosses though. To shake things up a bit, the game gives you the opportunity to extend your runs by visiting secret floors. You can access secret floors from almost every chamber, but you need to fulfill certain requirements to do so. The first secret floor is called the Oubliette, and you can access it by extinguishing this fireplace located in the keep of the Lead Lord, which is the first chamber. You can do this by either rolling a water barrel into it or shooting it with certain guns. After doing that, you need to go into the fireplace and interact with it. This will open a secret room with a trapdoor locked by 2 padlocks, so you will need 2 spare keys to open it. This is the reason why the Oubliette can be a very hard floor, because you will most likely not have a lot of guns when accessing it. Because you probably could not open all the chests on the first chamber because you needed 2 keys to get there. There are a lot of enemies who are immune to poison, and you will encounter a lot of these giant mushrooms that fire spores all over the place. The boss of this floor is pretty easy however. Secret floors will always have the same boss fight, and you also cannot get a master round on secret floors, so don't get too obsessed with beating the secret bosses flawlessly. The second secret floor is the Abbey of the True Gun, and you can access it by finding the old crest in the Oubliette and placing it on an altar in the Gungeon proper, which is the second chamber. This sounds pretty easy, but it is actually very stressful, because the old crest is basically an armor piece, and if you get hit, you will lose it. So you need to pick it up and carry it all the way to one specific room on the next floor without getting hit once. I strongly advise you to only pick up the old crest after you are done with the floor. In the Abbey of the True Gun you will encounter the Old King, who is just a much harder and tankier version of the Bullet King boss from the first chamber. After you beat him, you will get a guaranteed synergy chest. The third secret floor is definitely the most complicated out of the bunch, so strap in and take notes if you have to. First of all, before you access it, you should find 6 infuriating notes that you will find in chests or if you get something stolen by the rat. These notes all have a piece of cheese at the bottom pointing in a direction, and if you have all 6 of them, you will know which way to go when you access this floor. Because this floor is basically a maze. You also can't look it up, because the right way to go varies from save file to save file. Except you are playing on the Switch. I have heard that the right way through the maze is always the same on the Switch. Maybe the developers know that the average Switch player does not have the biggest attention span.
Whoa, the crit!
Of course you can also try to guess your way through the maze if you are a very patient person, but yeah, that's on you. You also need to buy the Nard key from the shop in the second chamber, which costs 115 casings. So yeah, go through the Oubliette if you want to make sure that you will have enough money. To access it, you simply need to find the trapdoor that is covered by dirt. You will need to walk off. It is located in the Black Powder Mines, the third chamber. You will know that you walk over the trapdoor when you raise a lot of dust. The trapdoor is also always located in a room with rats in it. You need 1 key to open it, and after that you will drive this minecart until you have reached the end of the tracks. Then you need to use 2 blanks to open up the secret passageway, which will lead you to this other locked trapdoor. To open it, you will need to use the NOT key. After going down the trapdoor, you have successfully entered the rat's lair, and this is where it can get really annoying. Now you are inside of the maze I just told you about, and on your way to the end, you will encounter some of the nastiest enemies in the game. At the end, you will get 2 hearts and 2 ammo drops, so don't be shy to use your best weapons. Oh, and if you go the wrong way, it can happen that you just get locked inside this room with an elevator taking you to the 4th chamber. I mean... fuck! So yeah, I really recommend writing down the directions from the infuriating notes, because you can become a little confused when you also have to battle for survival at the same time. After you've went through the maze, you will face the rat. You know, the sucker that steals all the stuff that you forget to pick up. This boss fight has 3 phases. The first one already takes a lot of blood and sweat to get through. But the second phase, where the rat gets into its mech, really separates the boys from the men. Especially this attack. I mean, look at this, it's a fucking mess. After you have beaten this phase and finished celebrating the fact that you just beaten this phase, you will fight the rat in a match of Punch-Out. Yeah, I'm not joking. And this fight also has 3 phases, because this game hates you. It's a roguelike, of course it does. You can parry the rat's attacks if you attack it at just the right time when it starts to flash, and if you succeed with that, you will gain a star, which grants you a super punch. You can have a maximum of 3 stars, and the more stars you have, the more damage the super punch will do. After beating the crap out of the rat, you'll get access to its 4 treasure chests, which require special keys to open them. You get 1 key for beginning the Punch-Out fight, 1 for winning it, and 1 for ending each round with a 3-star super punch. Oh, and the Punch-Out fight also has a time limit. Yeah, I yelled at the game a few times while learning this fight.
Und du sagst es mir nicht, aber schade, aber ich leg mich doch am Arsch!
But I can tell you one thing. Winning the Punch-Out fight for the first time felt absolutely phenomenal.
Yes! Yes! In your face, Elizabeth! It's just like my life! In a way!
The good news though is that the run is not over if you lose the Punch-Out fight. You will just get less treasure keys and the relentless feeling of failure. In the 4th chamber, the Hollow, you can access the secret floor by finding this cell creep. You will need to give him 2 guns or items and 1 master round. You will also get some money in exchange. Once the cell creep has received his demands, the grid over the hole will be bombed open and you can access the secret floor. The 4th secret floor is nothing less but the goddamn RNG department itself. You know, the place that decides your fate in pretty much every roguelike run. I was really excited to see the workplace of the scumbags that keep on giving me crappy items and refuse to give me important pickups when I need them. The RNG department always has the same layout, so getting through it is not that hard. The boss fight of this floor is a green goblin in a helicopter, and you thought this game would resist the urge to put a helicopter boss fight in it, huh? It is a very challenging boss fight, but it is definitely doable with a good amount of HP and a few good guns. It is also the only boss in the game that actually has voice acting.
I got all the bad guns.
On your journey through the Gungeon, you will also often find these rooms with NPCs behind bars. If you then find the orange cell key, you can set them free and they will show up in the breach, which is the hub area of the game. Rescuing these NPCs is very useful because they will support you in a variety of ways. Some of them will show up during your run and you can buy guns and items from them, and some of them unlock new guns in exchange for these green credits, which you can get from killing bosses. My favorite NPCs are Grace, a blue chick who sells you synergy chests, Winchester, a shady looking fella who basically has a carnival shooting gallery where you can win chests, the Vampire where you can get money in exchange for health, and these 2 guys who always have a challenge for the next room for you, which you have to bet money on. These challenges mostly require you to clear a room without taking damage or to clear a room while only using a crappy gun they gave you. If you succeed, you will get your money back and also receive a new gun. There are still a lot more NPCs, but hey, I don't want to spoil everything for you. And yeah, I know you don't care about all this crap. You want to know what guns there are, how they feel and how much variety they have. Well, I can confidently say that there are a hell lot of guns in this game. and it really doesn't leave much to be desired. Think of a gun you want to have, and the chances are pretty good that it is in the game. Of course you have standard stuff like a regular shotgun, yeah, that is literally how it's called, a machine pistol, an AK-47, an M16, several kinds of revolvers, sniper rifles, beam weapons, melee weapons, you name it. There are even guns that are instruments, like the face melter for example, a flying V-guitar that fires notes at enemies when you play it. Kind of reminds me of the game Brutal Legend. You can also place down an amp by pressing the reload button, which acts as a stationary turret that shoots in the same direction as you. This is very helpful during boss fights. There is also just a lowercase r that shoots bullets.
Bullet. Bullet. Bullet.
A giant shotgun shell that shoots shotguns, a bullet that shoots guns, a water pistol, which is exactly as useful as it sounds, a rocket launcher that is called the Stinger because it shoots bees, a magic lamp that summons a genie that uppercuts enemies, and even a gun that evolves into other guns. Just to name a few. Seriously, if I would talk about every memorable gun from this game, this video would take longer than the Redux version of Apocalypse Now. So yeah, I'll try to keep it short. Something that I really appreciate is the fact that you can actually find guns from other games, like the plasma cutter from Dead Space, the Columbine rifle from Half-Life 2, the BFG from Doom, the Serious Cannon from Serious Sam, and even the freaking watering can from Stardew Valley. And these guns all do their idols justice, because they all kick ass, just like in the games they're from. One of my absolute favorite weapons is definitely the rat gun though. It is a gun that does a kickflip every time you succeed in that fast reloading quicktime event from Gears of War. And with every kickflip this gun does more damage, to a point where you can even rip through bosses with this thing. Once you mess up, the damage goes back to normal again and you have to build it back up again. I just love it. It is so much fun to use and the sounds it makes are very motivating. Also, there are weapons with status effects that deal fire, poison or electric damage, and also guns that can freeze enemies, which can be very helpful. Of course, you can also be affected by status effects. You have to avoid green poison on the ground, because if you stand in it for too long, you will be damaged. Oh, and if you happen to get caught on fire, you have to dodge it out. Of course, you will also need ammo for your guns. Every weapon besides the starter pistol of your character has limited ammo. You can refill your ammo with ammo drops you can get by clearing rooms or by buying them in the shop. Green ammo drops will completely refill one gun of your choice, while red ammo drops will refill all of your guns partially. If you have a lot of guns, red ammo drops are definitely more lucrative. Especially because there are just some guns who are very strong but have a very bad ammo economy. A good example for this is the makeshift cannon. This gun destroys almost everything in one hit, but it only has one shot and after that you can't use it until you find ammo again. This basically turns this weapon into an active item that you should only use for boss fights to instantly drain 70% of their health. The items in this game serve as more of a supporting role for your guns. I mean, it's called Enter the Gungeon, so it kind of makes sense. There are items that give you special bullet effects, like occasional explosive shots or electric rounds, and these can really give some guns that last bit of oomph. You can also get healing items, there are some that will give you flying, which makes movement rooms really easy. Body items, which will grant familiars, who will either help you offensively or defensively, and some of these can really be a big help. Like this Payday 2 looking dude that will blank away nearby bullets and also fight enemies with his shotgun. Or this pig that will throw himself between you and the killing shot, granting you an extra life. Yeah, this pig actually saved me runs, and because of that it deserves a mentioning in this segment. There are also active items which can give you ammo, a temporary damage up, a blank on cooldown, or simply just grenades or Molotov cocktails. You can recharge your active items by killing enemies, and certain items will give you coolness, which will decrease the cooldown time. There are cigarettes for example, which will damage you for half a heart upon use, but you will also increase coolness. Yeah, kind of like in real life, am I right?
Yep.
Some items or guns coupled with other items or guns will give you synergies. These will increase your damage, let you dual wield weapons or give you certain bullet effects. Some weapons and items have more synergies than others and are therefore more worthy of picking up, because the likelihood of getting a synergy is much higher with these guns. I don't really plan to get synergies, I just get them. But it is a very nice touch, and some of them are very funny. There is a synergy for the face melter called Alternative Rock, which will turn the Flying V into a Jazz Master that shoots double the amount of notes, you know, because Alternative Rock has a lot more to offer than regular rock. Now that you've learned the basic gameplay loop of this game, it's time to talk about the characters you can choose to fight through the Gungeon with. At the beginning you will only have 4 of them: the Hunter, the Pilot, the Convict and the Marine. Later on you will also unlock the Gunslinger, the Bullet, the Paradox and the Robot. But we will talk more about those and their unlock methods later on. For now, let's focus on the 4 lovely individuals you start with. The Marine is a very straightforward character, without any gimmicks. He has a starting pistol with a decent fire rate and magazine size, a bit more movement speed than the other characters, and a one-time use active item that gives you a green ammo drop. He also starts with 1 armor piece, and he will even lose his helmet when out of armor, which is a nice touch. The Pilot's starting pistol is a lot slower than the Marine's, but he gets a small discount in the shop and a bit more ammo capacity, and 2 active item slots. He also starts with a lockpick, which is a nice gambling item, because when you use it on a chest, it will either open the lock for free or break it entirely, so you have no other choice but to abandon or destroy it. A very suspenseful item indeed. The Convict starts with 2 weapons. A revolver with infinite ammo, which annoyingly can only fire 5 shots before reloading. I mean, if you give me a revolver, at least give me a 6-shooter, goddammit. She also starts with a sawed-off shotgun that has limited ammo, and a Molotov cocktail. She also gets a temporary damage buff after you get hit. The Hunter is probably the most accessible character out of the 4 main characters, and my recommendation for beginners. She has a good starting weapon with infinite ammo in form of a revolver and also a crossbow, which one-shots a lot of the earlier enemies. She also has a dog that will occasionally dig out pickups and bark at mimic chests to warn you, and yes, you can pet it. The Hunter and the Marine are possibly the 2 characters I've spent the most time with. I don't know why, probably because the Marine reminds me of a certain other Marine I've also spent a lot of time with. And the Hunter is just objectively the best beginner character, and if you disagree, I can't wait to hear your reasoning. When it comes to the unlockable characters, they really knocked it out of the park. You would probably think that you just need to beat a specific boss with a specific character, but no. The developers of this game really wanted to do things differently. Every character has a unique unlock method. Before we get started, I want to point out that the very first thing you should do in this game is unlocking the bullet that can kill the past. As the name suggests, it is the ammo for the gun that can kill the past, and you need to unlock it to access the past fights for each character. To unlock it, you need to find 4 components of the bullet and bring them to the blacksmith in the forge. You need to find the prime primer, the arcane gunpowder, the planar lead and the obsidian shell casing. The prime primer can be bought in the shop of the Gungeon proper. It is 110 casings. So again, I recommend going through the oubliette to get more money. In the black powder mine you can get the gunpowder, which you will find in this weird room with minecarts floating in the air. They are actually on invisible tracks and you need to jump from cart to cart to reach the pedestal with the gunpowder that is located on the other end of the room. Beware that the gunpowder will take up your active item slot. In the hollow you will come across a large seemingly empty room that has a pit on the right side. Across this pit you will find the lead, and to get across the pit you need to locate this invisible bridge. To do that you can keep reloading your gun and pay attention to the bullet casings coming out of it. If they disappear there is nothing, but if they float in the air it means that there is a passage. This sounds very tedious, and it is. But in case you have a gun that shoots fluids, you can basically make the whole bridge visible for you. To get your hands on the shell casing, you just need to defeat the Hydra gun and destroy its skull. Then you bring everything to the blacksmith and congratulations, you just unlocked the bullet that can kill the past. The good news is that you will never have to do this again. If you do it once, you can always just visit the blacksmith and she will give you the bullet. You also don't have to get all components in one run. Once the blacksmith has received the component of the bullet, she will keep it for all future runs. Oh, and once unlocked, it enables you to purchase the Nard key in the Gungeon proper, since the Prime Primer is not there anymore. If you beat the High Dragon, the run is usually over, but if you acquire the bullet that can kill the past, you will encounter your character's past in a final boss fight. For the past fights, all of your guns and items will be taken away from you, so be at your A game for these. The 4 main characters' past fights are all pretty fair, because they all are doable as long as you don't play like a fucking idiot. The Marine has to go up against a giant interdimensional demon that can spawn ads that look very much like the imps from Doom, which I really love. Right from the beginning, this character reminded me of the Doom guy, and this boss fight just drove that point home for me. During this fight, you have your starting pistol and an assault rifle. It is a very fair fight and I managed to beat it on my second try. I really only needed that second try because it was the first pass fight I have ever done and I felt demoralized because I got all my stuff taken away from me. But I managed to accept that and went back to kick some demon ass. The hunter goes up against an evil scientist who lives in a castle, I mean, where else? For this fight, you will keep your starter pistol and also get the sticky crossbow, which shoots explosive arrows, that you can ignite by pressing the reload button. Fun boss fight. I managed to do it on my first try, thank god. The convict has herself a shootout against the mob boss in a nightclub. She has her shitty 5-shooter revolver and a good old Tommy gun. This boss fight is probably the easiest one out of all the past fights, and it is also one of my favorites. Not because it is easy, it is because I really like the setting and the build up to it. You are sitting in your office and then this guy comes in and tells you that your partnership with him is over and that his men will now arrest you. Of course the convict is a tough gal that won't just surrender because some fat mob dude tells her to. So she just shoots all of his friends, goes down to the dance floor and finishes the mob boss off. And after that she escapes the scene in her slick looking hover car. So cool. The past fight of the pilot also proved to me that he is based off Han Solo. Because for his past fight, you will control a spaceship and fight an even bigger spaceship. Of course, it can spawn ads that will place themselves in a formation to shoot at you, so you can take them off one by one. You know, just to make the Space Invaders reference complete. Your ship has regular cannons and it can also fire rockets on cooldown. Very charming boss fight. It took me a couple of tries, I admit that. But I had a lot of fun with it, and that is the most important thing when you play video games, right? After you have killed the past of a character, you will unlock their alternative skin. The Marine gets a cool knight armor, the pilot gets a fancy jacket, the convict becomes a rafer I guess, and the hunter gets a wolf's cloth. If you kill your past again with the alternative skin equipped, you will even unlock an alternative skin for your starting weapon. So now let's talk about the unlockable characters. To unlock the paradox, you first need to kill at least one past. After that, during every future run, a cosmic rift can appear on the floor, which you have to interact with. Once you do that, your character will get the paradox effect. If you then manage to kill your character's past, you have successfully unlocked the paradox. This character has no past to kill, and he always starts with one random gun. He works kind of like Eden in The Binding of Isaac. To unlock the bullet, you basically need nothing more than patience. Once you have killed one past, you can come across these red cape wearing bullets that won't attack you. You have to clear the room without killing them and wait for them to despawn. Do that 5 times and you will unlock the bullet. This is worth it, trust me, because the bullet is probably my favorite character in the entire game. It starts with a sword that shoots blades that do a lot of damage, to a point that you can almost use this thing throughout the entire run. You can even destroy enemy projectiles with it. And when it comes to a starting weapon, I don't know what more you could ask for. The catch with this thing though is that as soon as you are not full red heart HP anymore, the sword won't shoot blades anymore, turning it into a pure melee weapon. This keeps you constantly on edge and motivates you to keep delivering your A game. The past fight of the bullet is also probably the hardest one of the game. First of all, the only weapon you'll get is a wooden sword that only does melee damage, and you have to fight 2 armored knights and 2 boss fights with this thing. Just let that sink in for a moment. The first boss fight is against this floating mage, who you can only damage by parrying this giant tennis ball back to him. He will also parry it back at some point, and the fight will accelerate into a Wii Sports tennis match. The last boss fight is against this green boar that you need to fight up close and personal while he gets a gun. Yeah, that sounds fair, doesn't it? This fight took me multiple attempts and it was very overwhelming at first. But once you understand this fight, it becomes way more trivial. Oh, and you unlock a pink bunny costume for the bullet after killing its past. So it was definitely all worth it. The robot can be unlocked by simply bringing the blacksmith the busted television that you can find in the elevator shaft of the Gungeon proper. The TV will take up your active item slot and you will drop it every time you dodge roll. If you leave it on the ground and leave the room, the rat will steal it, and if it falls down a pit, it is also gone. You can use the active item button to throw it across pits, but this is way easier said than done. I did this together with a friend, and oh boy, getting that TV through movement rooms is some very intense shit. The robot has an arm cannon and an active item that lets him make water puddles that can be electrocuted by shooting at them. It also makes accessing the oubliette a lot easier. The catch with the robot is the fact that he cannot have red heart HP. He only can have armor as HP, which makes finding red hearts completely useless. The past fight of the robot takes you to the Future Wars, where you have to fight no one else than Sarah Connor herself. No, not that Sarah Connor, you damn millennial. The one from Terminator, of course. Very fun and accessible boss fight. And to further drive the Terminator reference home, you will unlock a robotic skeleton skin. Sounds familiar, am I right? Now we will get into the real deal. The Gunslinger. After you have beaten the pasts of the 4 main characters, you will unlock a secret 6th floor called Bullet Hell. A name that could not describe this floor better, cause this floor is gigantic. It also has no shops or treasure rooms and the enemies really do not like you and they are not shy of expressing that. The boss fight of this floor is against the Lich, which has 3 phases, with each of them being more crushing than the last. To unlock the Gunslinger, you need to defeat the Lich as the Paradox, which will then catapult you back to the start of the run. Now you are playing as the Gunslinger, but you have not unlocked him yet. To unlock him, you need to acquire the bullet that can kill the past and defeat a harder version of the Lich, which has a mirrored body that will shoot jammed bullets. And if you manage to do that, you can not only consider yourself one of the biggest chads on the planet, but you also have unlocked the Gunslinger and basically beaten the game. The Gunslinger is basically a normal character that starts with a revolver. But the main reason why he is such a beloved character is the fact that you will automatically get synergies with him, which is really fun. In case the game is getting too exhausting for you, you can always grab a friend to play alongside you. Yes, this game has a fully fleshed out co-op mode and I really like it. Especially because it's a local co-op mode, meaning that you don't have to talk your friends into buying the game. One player can pick a character, while the other player controls the cultist. A character that is specially made for the co-op mode. He starts with a dart pistol and an active item that can revive the other player in case he or she dies. I often play this game in co-op with a mate of mine and it works pretty damn well. There are just a few minor problems that you can probably already expect when you think about playing this game cooperatively. In bigger rooms, you and your buddy have to communicate their movements, because if both players walk in opposite directions, your view becomes very limited. You also have to decide for yourself who gets which weapons, because the drop rate of weapons does not get increased when you play co-op. Another thing that can get very frustrating is the fact that both players have to beat bosses without getting hit to get a master round. And if you manage to do so, you still only get one master round. I think if both players manage to beat the boss flawlessly, both deserve a master round, but that's just my personal opinion though. In case one of you dies, the dead character will be revived after a boss fight. The other player can use the revive active item, and if the other player finds a treasure room, the chest will be replaced with a revive chest, which can be opened for free. In exchange, you will miss out on equipment. If you die, all of your equipment will be dropped on the floor and then your body needs to pick it all up because, yeah, I think you know why at this point. While you are dead, you can still help your friend out, because you will control this ghost that can blank away a small amount of bullets. It is a really nice mechanic to keep the teamwork going, because teamwork makes the dream work. Most of the time at least. In case the game starts to become too easy for you at some point, you also can make runs more interesting by adding certain challenges. You unlock challenges by rescuing NPCs, who can then be met in the breach to activate a challenge. The simplest challenge is probably Turbo Mode, which just increases your and the enemy's movement speed and also makes bullets fly a lot faster. I like this challenge, because it really makes the game feel a lot more intense, especially during boss fights. You can activate this challenge when you meet this blue bear. There is also Daisuke's challenge, which adds certain modifications to every room. Some rooms will be darker, you will get chased around by airstrikes, enemies will all do a death blow attack and many more. Each room can have up to 3 modifiers and they are also present during boss fights. This challenge really pushes you to your limits. I love it. You can also get a blessing from the sorceress, which will limit you to one weapon only. Your one and only gun will always turn into other guns on the fly. Very interesting concept. During this challenge you can really rush through the floors if you want, because finding chests is not important, since you can't pick up other guns anyway. You know these situations where you just can't decide which gun to use? Well, this challenge takes this decision off your shoulders. Maybe a bit too much sometimes. You can also do rainbow runs, which will give you a rainbow chest at the beginning of each floor. You can choose one gun or item from the stuff that comes out of it. Sounds pretty useful, right? The problem though is that these rainbow chests are the only way for you to get guns or items. Chests will contain nothing but a note that reminds you that you are currently playing a rainbow run. Yeah, thanks. And shops and boss pedestals will be empty as well. Except if you manage to get a master round. Those will still occur. I definitely do not prefer this over a regular run, because one gun or item per floor is really not that much. It is definitely fun for a few runs and a great way to practice the game though. And if you are asking yourself why you should even do these challenges, you can unlock items by doing them. That's gotta be enough motivation, am I right?
Let's do this.
To sum it up, I really have a love-hate relationship with these kinds of games. Sometimes the game just gives me crap and makes me feel like the biggest noob on earth. But other times, when I actually win runs and get flawless victories against tough bosses, are simply one of my best memories from my life as a gamer. So yeah, if you like roguelikes and have a fable for top-down shooters in pixel art style, Enter the Gungeon should be right up your alley. It is a game with a lot of replay value, a fun gameplay loop and lots of humor. Of course, it hates you and kicks your ass more often than you want to admit. But you always learn from your mistakes, and after every death you get this feeling that you can do better next time. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, and you also always wanted to know what Binding of Isaac with guns and dodge rolling would be like, then I am very sure that you will have a good time with this game. And also a few meltdowns probably. I still really like this game, and I will probably continue playing it for quite a while. So yeah, if you ask me, go buy it. You can also play it on your PlayStation, your Xbox and even on the go with your Nintendo Switch. If you made it this far into the video, I'm sure I managed to catch your interest for this game. Oh, and before I let you go, I want to point out that I had to use the console a few times for capturing footage of everything. So not everything you just saw was 100% legit. Bullshit! I am normally against cheating, but I wanted to get this video done, so I did it for the sake of this review. I will delete this save file afterwards and do all the unlocks the true way once more. I also play this game with the health bar mod, so all these health bars you were seeing the entire time were originally not there. I just think it really improves the damage feedback of the game. I just wanted you to know this. Thank you very much for sticking around.